MAD, or Mutually Assured Destruction, is an acronym that was coined in order to explain the situation in which both the superpowers had the capacity to destroy each other. They had an incredible arsenal of atomic weapons, yet they couldn't use the atomic weapons for fear that the other superpower would retaliate, and that would cause the destruction of the world. So I think this cartoon is very accurate, using irony here to show that although they've got the most technologically advanced weapons, they cannot use them, and they're fighting each other with arrows and bows in a very primitive way, with obviously conventional weapons, because they simply cannot afford to use their atomic weapons. Because if they use atomic weapons, if the US uses their atomic weapons and the Soviet Union retaliates, then the world can come to an end. During the Cold War, the arms race very soon became the space race, in which America and the Soviet Union competed for supremacy, not only on Earth, but also in space. These are some of the successes of each superpower in space. The Soviets started with the first launch of Sputnik, a satellite, in 1957. That really amazed the United States and the world, and they realized that at that point in time, the Soviets were ahead of them. Later on, they continued to progress, and they launched Sputnik 2, and that was a satellite that carried a dog named Laika, and that was the first animal in space. And then only in 1958, America had their first achievement in space, and that was when they launched the satellite Explorer 1. In 1961, the Soviets obtained another victory over America in space, and that was when Yuri Gagarin flew in space, when he was the first man to fly in space and to return to Earth alive. America only had their first man in space about a month later. The Soviets were also the first ones to send a woman into space in 1963. I think America only sent a woman into space something like 20 years later, so it's something quite recent. But then, when it all looked like the Soviets were winning the space race, then in 1969, NASA launched Apollo 9, and later on they landed on the moon. It was in 1969 that the space race reached its peak, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon and walked on the surface during the Apollo 11 mission. And so historians tend to say that America won the space race. In order to understand what happened in Berlin, we need to understand the division of Germany in 1945. After World War II, Germany was occupied and was divided into four zones. The pink zone was the United States, the green zone was Great Britain, the orange zone was France, and the yellow zone was the Soviet Union. If you look at the capital of Germany, Berlin, Berlin falls within the Soviet Union territory, and that will become a problem. Because Berlin was a capital city, they decided to divide Berlin as well into four zones. So that's a smaller map there that shows how Berlin was divided into East Berlin, and that was obviously in the control of the Soviet Union, and then West Berlin, which was at the beginning in the control of the three other countries, and later on mainly of America.